Do you think it's like because you were a dork that you were like, no offense, but self-proclaimed?
Whoa.
No offense, you're a dork.
No offense.
Interview over. I am Gallagher walking out of here. Happy to have you on your own podcast.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Also, it's not required, but I mentioned this in the email that we smoke weed on the podcast. I know you said you don't smoke. Are you eating edibles? You just hanging out with us today?
Right now, I'm just hanging out because I have to drive my car in a little bit to go to a show.
Responsibility.
So I hope
Nice.
that's okay.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
It's
fine.
never a requirement.
Yeah.
But it say like it goes 50-50,
Cool.
Like some of
I'd
our
love to
guests
come
are-
back sometime when I don't need to do anything.
So are you in a hotel right now? Are you
No, this is my home.
Touring? Okay, cool.
I went to DC for the weekend last weekend,
Nice.
and that was my first time back outside of my home area and out of my home almost.
Yeah.
And then I've got shows in New York from now until July 14th, and then starting the 14th when I'm in West Virginia, I then will be
Yes.
on the road for about 3 weeks.
Nice.
Nice.
So you're starting the tour with us for the most
Number one. Yeah.
Nice. That's fun. Guys, welcome again to another episode of Comics and Chronic. I'm Cody Cannon. Always, I'm joined by Anthony Iannaccio. And unfortunately, our co-host Jake isn't here right now. We are joined today with comedian Myq Kaplan. He's had plenty of albums. You've seen him on Comedy Central. He has a special out on Amazon. You just released an album on audio, correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. During the pandemic, 2020, my newest album, AKA is the name of it, came out. So I recorded in front of an audience when that was allowed previously,
Nice.
as it is becoming again. And that's the newest one. If you only remember 3 letters, it's really only 2 letters, just two A's with a K in the middle.
I actually was listening to that today. Is that the material I'm going to get to see, or are you rehearsing new material?
Great question. No, I am essentially done with the material that is on AKA. It started coming into being around 2016. I recorded it in 2019. Maybe I think I did it once or twice after recording it. But once I've recorded an album or a special, my goal is to be doing the next one, newer ones. And so there is a whole new hour that has not been recorded that you will see when you see me.
Nice.
So is that material you were working on during the pandemic, or it's
another good question? The hits keep coming. So kind of no, mostly. So there's always like a little bit of overlap between like when I'm kind of grateful for the way it's worked. Like when I put out my first album, I think I recorded it in 2009 and it came out in 2010. Then like for the next couple of years, I was sort of like, there were some jokes that I didn't record on that first album. And then I wrote a bunch of new jokes. And then by the time I recorded my next album in 2012, I had like a couple hours worth of stuff to try to pick from to make that next one. And then the next one, so I made the following year. Oh, is everything okay? I don't know what's happening. What are those sounds? Is there something in the connection going on? It's so weird. Okay, it's fine. I think everything will be fine. And so when I recorded like the special that's on Amazon now called Small Dork and Handsome, like that I recorded in 2013. It came out in 2014. It's almost always been like, it'll get recorded and then released maybe a year later, so that I always have like some amount of time to be creating the new stuff, so that if people get the album and are like, I got to see you tomorrow, like they're not going to see the exact same thing that they just got. Which maybe they want. Maybe I'm disappointing everybody. Maybe they're like, oh man, I want to go see this album. I'm like, well, you got to go back in time. But so I've now written and it riffed so many things over the years that like now I'm like, especially over the pandemic, like I did so many like online shows where I wasn't doing specifically the new hour that I'm working on, because I was like, I'm just going to take a break from that and just kind of be present with what's happening. And, Zoom is weird and online shows are weird, but like, I've probably, I don't know, like now getting back to live shows, I'm finding out what things I said over the past year are worth saying out loud to people that are in the room, and like the answer is some of it. But like I remember, so the album that came out before AKA was called No Kidding, and I recorded it in 2016. And like I remember the next night, I just did a whole new set of kind of like, loose ideas that would become the new the album AKA. And so while that, like everything's sort of going on at the same time, like processing the new album as it goes through the process of, my girlfriend calls it like blooming and pruning. So like in the beginning, sort of just like, planting a bunch of seeds and like watering them and doing a bunch of analogies to farming that I don't know. And, eventually like, a forest grows, a bonsai tree grows, a harvest comes. And so the blooming phase is just where it's, no censors, no self-censorship, just like come up with the ideas and then figure out in the pruning phase, which might be like, a year down the line or sort of happens along the way. But ultimately, as the album gets closer to being released, it's, more pruning and less blooming. But then the blooming is sort of like the most fun part of the creative process to begin with, is like, oh, like a new idea, saying a new thing, isn't it? Hey, everybody, like I thought this and here it is, blah, just like vomiting up new things. And so like, and then into the mouth of the baby bird audience, and they're like, ooh, we love this, thank you, feed us your vomit, and like, look at this new thing that's blooming right now, delicious vomit. That's my new album name, is Delicious Vomit. And
excited for that one.
Thank you. Yeah, it was born here tonight. So see, this is what's happening is that, like being open to whatever's happening in the moment. So going like when I was like finalizing, the structure and content of AKA, I was also like letting the blooming phase process happen with the new hour that I'm working on now, which is also now getting close to being as fully bloomed and now getting more into the pruning as possible. So now all the stuff that happened during the pandemic, those are all like, blooming for future prunings. So I'd say that since I started, so I was working on AK between 2016 and 2019, that this must have started, the new hour that I've got now, which is called Imperfect, is like, the seeds were planted in 2017, 2018. So probably like it was a year and a half, 2 years in the works, and then put on pause. And I'm now returning to it when it was on its way to, I was going to bring it to the Edinburgh Fringe Fest, which is what I did with AKA before I recorded it. And it's like just, 25 days in a row of doing the show and like getting it into like having it be the thing, like discover the thing that it is. And so I was going to bring the new show there last year, but I don't know if you've heard about what happened, that nothing happened anywhere. And so now I'm just, it's not happening this year either, as far as I know. I'm not going to the Edinburgh Fringe Fest this year, but maybe next. So now I've got like, I'm like, oh, there's actually no deadline at all. So I've got this show ready to go, excited to tour it, excited to bring it to y'all, and also excited to at some point stop doing it and do new. I'm really excited to do this and stop doing it. Like I love breathing in and I love breathing out. You couldn't tell from listening to me talk, but I do love breathing in and out for sure.
Is this going to be your first time in West Virginia?
I'm sure that the answer is I think it is the first time that I'm performing in West Virginia, and I've driven so many places. I've driven up and down, the East Coast and sort of the Southeast. So it seems plausible to me. I guess I got to look at a map to see if I've driven through West Virginia.
For sure.
I think this will be my first time performing there for sure. And I don't know if y'all are Jewish or have any Jews there, but there's
a little bit.
Yeah, cool.
Jake, we need Jake for this one. Jake's our
he's our resident. He's
our resident Jewish person.
Beautiful. So there's a Jewish prayer called the Shehechianu, which is I was just reminded of it today because do y'all know about what is it? Like on the first of the month, sometimes people say rabbit, rabbit first thing in the morning. Is that something you've heard of?
No.
Oh, like
insane.
I learned about it like from a girlfriend about 10 years ago.
Wait, who says this on the who says this on the first of the month? Like a specific like culture or something, or just like
I think it's people. This woman was Ukrainian, but
Okay.
I don't think it's them.
Okay.
It could be, but I know other people that aren't Ukrainian that also do it. It's just like it is, like where does it come from that you're not supposed to walk under a ladder? Like common sense or whatever.
Yeah,
but
superstition.
Yeah, it's like just a superstitious good luck thing that I do now because when I remember it, I enjoy doing it because it makes me remember this person I care about fondly, like still a sweet person, even though we're not together for the past 10 years. But I was telling somebody else about it, or somebody was telling me about it in an email, and they were like, do you do this rabbit rabbit thing? And they're like, it's sort of like it could be like a non-religious Shehechianu, which is the Shehechianu is like the prayer for doing something new, like best wishes for the new thing, the new month, the new this, the new that. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna say that at least metaphorically, spiritual. I'm gonna say this prayer in spirit, not in letter, but when I'm coming to perform in West Virginia for the first time, that's the reason I said all that.
Nice. Yeah. Well, we're excited to have you. Are you so we talk about like nerdy things.
Whoa, I'm a jock. Hold on.
He's gonna bully us now, Cody.
We like to just nerd. It's called Comics and Chronic, which is like a double entendre because we're all like, I'm a stand-up comic. Anthony's a writer. Jake has done a lot more improv and stuff like that. So we're all comedy people, but we also love comic books, and that's like one of the things that cause us to be friends and whatnot. Are you into comic books at all?
I'm going to answer that question by saying yes in a moment. But first, or second, depending what order you're taking things in, I want to say I like the way that you phrased, it's one of the things that caused us to be friends. I like that it put you on an unstoppable path, much like the Juggernaut. See, look, I'm showing.
Nice.
I'm not telling. They say that nothing can stop the Juggernaut except for every hero that he fights. That's the only thing that can stop the Juggernaut is the writer writing the hero how to do it. But other than that, like nothing else can stop the Juggernaut except for the hero whose book it is. But yeah, I love comic books. It's such a weird thing. Like here, the way that I'm going to say this, I wrote this joke a couple weeks ago. I think I was like, I love movies the way I love people. Not all of them. And I feel that way about comics as well. Like, because there's things like, it's weird if somebody says, I don't like music, or I don't like movies, or
Right.
I don't like big, entertainment art form that like, well, which ones have you seen? There's gotta be like, they're just so ever present. But like stand-up comedy, there are people who say like, I don't like stand-up comedy. And I'm like, probably you just haven't seen the one that you love. It'd be like saying, like, I don't like food. I'm like, have you tried? There's got to be some foods that you're okay with. There's got to be some stand-up comedy. And comic books are like that as well. There's some people that, if you haven't experienced a lot of them, then you might have just an impression of, oh, it's like, just some male, like, fantasy of like women in tight clothes and it's superhero, like fantasy nonsense when there's like, of course, like Mouse, a Pulitzer Prize winning, like essentially a documentary. Like there's memoir comics that are like, that I'm a big fan of. And there's, of course, like I read Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud years ago.
McCloud, yep.
And he talks about how comics are like they're not a genre. They like there's all different genres within comics, but people think about it like it's a genre. Right. And as such, they're like, okay, so what is the thing that I want to get to? Oh yeah, people think of it as like, they're for kids, they're Archie comics or they're only superhero comics. But no, oh yeah, this is the thing. I didn't smoke anything, but I did forget what I was about to say. So I'm culturally stoned right now. And it's like, I think he pointed out that, I think it was Scott McCloud who pointed out that like, if you look at like literature, words without pictures, they're like, that's high art. And then if you look at paintings, like pictures without words, they're like, that's high art. And they're like, okay, so combine these two high arts and then you get like, crap. Like how does it happen that if you add like words are beautiful and pictures are beautiful and they're like, yeah, putting words and pictures together, that's for kids. I'm like, if anything's for kids, how about paintings are for kids? You know what I mean? Like at least there's some words in this. Now this is I'm now no longer paraphrasing Scott McCloud, but I mean, there's just so many, like there's great works of literature outside, like in non-graphic art, and there's so many great works of literature. Like there's beautiful, I guess, short answer, yes, I like comics.
What are some of your favorites?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, before we get into that, like we were talking with Tim Seeley, that episode, well, I don't think it's going to be out yet by the time we talk, this one comes out, but how when people think of comics, it's not just superhero comics, like people always just, when you say comics, it's like that's for kids because they're thinking Batman, Superman, whatever. But like you're saying, there are these graphic novels like Mouse, Persepolis, Funhouse, things like that. And then even crazier, like we read a comic by Tim Seeley called Money Shot. And that has nothing to do with superheroes. It's like OnlyFans in space. Like it's like a Star Trek-esque adventure where they're like banging aliens.
Oh yeah. So on the banging aliens tip, I do like Saga a lot.
Yes,
yes.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, big fan of Vaughn and all his stuff. I really like Ex Machina. Why the Last Man.
Nice.
I really like. I did just read. I love Fun Home. I love Alison Bechdel. I just read her newest one, The Secret to Superhuman Strength. It's
nice.
like she just really knows what she's doing. It's cool to look at, but like I mainly read for who's writing it. Like, and most of the people who are writing that I like usually get to work with cool ass like artists. Or like I'd much rather if I'm happy to look at a beautiful picture, but I'd rather read a cool story with like fine art than look at cool art with a story that I don't care about that much. So I love Ed Brubaker a lot. Like all of his stuff that I've read is really cool. Do you guys know Linda Barry? I like her a lot.
I don't know
she has it's definitely, I don't even know what genre it is. It's more like I'd say like true, but it's not necessarily like all memoir-y, but I'm doing this from memoir-y, by the way. And we have fun. I just want to let you know that that's just for fun. Not for anything meaningful at all. Just fun. Sorry. And fun. Fun can also be meaningful. But she has a book called Syllabus, which is like, she is a writer, an artist, a teacher, and she, I think, has a class that she like made the syllabus for, and then the syllabus became like, it looks like a composition notebook, and it became a graphic novel where it's sort of like kind of a how-to, like if you you can just read it and look at it and be interested by it. But also if you start drawing, then you can like go through it and become a better comics creator or artist. And one of the things that I remember from, like, I'd say I should look it up exactly, but I'm paraphrasing her here. In one of her books, she asked the question, like, how old do you have to be to make a bad drawing? And it's just basically like the idea is like, you know, a child, you don't look at a child's art and be like, that's not good. You know, like, even if you think, you're just like, oh yeah, at a certain age. But like, at what point, you know, are you quote unquote like supposed to be good or develop self-consciousness? Like, I stopped drawing at a point in my own life because I thought that I wasn't getting better. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be bad at it. Not realizing that I probably didn't get better because I stopped. And in order to get better at anything, you have to be bad. Like, if you're already good, it's hard to get better. If you're bad, it's much easier to get better as long as you know what you're doing, how to learn, etc. So really, really love Linda Barry. I'll also, on the maybe you don't know them side of things, my buddy, I have a couple buddies who like draw and make like web comics, and then some real book, you know, some fake stuff and some real stuff, some some online stuff and then some fake stuff that just happens out here in the real world. But my buddy Ramin Nazer, he's made so much art for me. Like, he's done a couple of my like an album cover and podcast designs, and then follow him on Instagram and get his books. Like, his first comic that I remember getting was called After You Die, and just every page is like a 2-page spread of one possibility of what happens after we die. Like, you know, heaven, hell, reincarnation, ghost, simulation, you know, like live on in your children, and just like really cool, like beautiful, psychedelic-y, like rainbow colored stuff.
Nice.
His podcast is called the Rainbow Brain Skull Hour. And he's actually got a new podcast called Mind Under Matter with, do you guys know Shane Moss, a comedian?
Yeah, I know Shane Moss very well.
Yeah, Shane and I started out together in Boston, and so Shane is a real good buddy. And so Ramin, check out, I love his comics. And Joe Karg is another buddy who, have you seen Rory's new special? Rory
The
Scobles?
one that just came out?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Oh, I've been wanting to. I was with my son, and it was like, he would not be the biggest fan. He's like 10, and all he thinks about is Fortnite. And I was like, I'll wait till I just got back today, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, when you see it, there is an artist friend of Rory's and mine named Joe Karg who like gave Rory a drawing of Rory that he did. Like, he's also like illustrated and made so many like flyers and posters and album covers for a bunch of comedians so if you're like, I like comedians, but I don't like comic art. Well, this is a nice foray. This is a nice, just like Venn diagram overlap for you. But back to your sincere question. Let's see. I also like Julia Wirtz a lot. I like Alex Robinson. I like. I'm glancing over at my shelf now and be like, what can I see? Fables is one that I really love.
Nice.
And those are some. I get those are some. I do love Bendis a lot, you know.
Nice.
And I've been on Dan Slott a lot. I really liked his Silver Surfer and his Spider-Man and his Iron Man, and who else? Oh, Jason Aaron's Thor is really cool.
So good.
Yeah.
There's so many. I could. If you guys want to go, I could just keep naming the comics I like for the next 30 to 45 minutes if you want. Yeah.
You passed the test.
Thank you.
No, there's no test. We don't gatekeep comics. Whatever you read, you read.
Yeah,
we don't judge.
I also am like the first to say I am not like, just because this podcast is about it, I'm not a comic expert by any mean. I don't know anything. I just like read a few things.
We know you don't, Cody.
I mean, I also I think we're all, you know, experts in the things that we enjoy and the things that we spend the most time like learning about. And like, so I know a lot about the comics that I've read, but I don't know everything about like, you know, all the comics. So certainly like, I could tell you probably more than most people could about the Savage Dragon, because that's the one comic that I've read consistently from 1992. I've read that comic for almost 30 years.
Wow.
And there's not a lot of comics that I could say that for.
What about that do you really like? Like, I know Savage Dragon, but I've just never read it.
That's a great question. Finally, again, here we are. I was talking for a while, so there was no time for other great questions in between. But
it's all good.
Yeah, you're still you're still delivering the bangers. So in 1992, I was like 13, and that was when Image basically started, and it was all the quote unquote cool creators from Marvel just started their own thing. And so I read them all at first, and I didn't really enjoy them all, but that was a time when I didn't know myself as well. And I think I was trying to read what I thought I was supposed to read, I did love like Spider-Man when I was reading Spider-Man at the time. Eric Larson, who did Savage Dragon, was like doing that. So like, I think I like Eric Larson's writing. It's like super playful. Like, I think he takes playfulness seriously. Like, he's clearly very dedicated to the craft, like the drawing, the things that he did with Savage Dragon. Like, I feel like the 7th or 8th episode was just like every page a full page spread, just like a story where he's fighting this, like, the main initial villain, Overlord, and it's just like it's really cool and a beautiful, like, an innovative way to tell a story that I hadn't specifically seen. Maybe other people had done it, but that it was just in the Savage Dragon universe, the characters age. And so I thought about this recently. It's the same thing that, the comic strip, the newspaper strip, For Better or For Worse.
Yeah.
They also like age in real time. And I'm like, that's the way. What a weird thing for Savage Dragon and For Better or For Worse to have in common. But it's such a cool thing that, I mean, of course it's great. Like, Spider-Man's great. And it's nice that there are all the versions of it. You can have the Miles Morales version. You can have, you can watch Into the Spider-Verse, whether you know anything about all the characters or not. There's all the weird, like, variations. And then there's also, so far, almost always, you're like, is there a Peter Parker who's kind of screwing things up all the time, trying to, like, go to class as a student or a teacher? Like, there's, if you only read Spider-Man once every 10 years, there's some Spider-Man that you can pick up and it's still recognizable to you. And maybe it's like the NCIS of, of comics. Be like, are there going to be people solving crimes? I just want the crimes to stop. So, but with Savage Dragon, he's like, I own this guy. I can do, like, he had created that character as a kid and created all these different, like, variations of storylines of how, like, in one he's an alien, and one he's like a guy who, like, changes into the Savage Dragon like the Hulk, in another he's just a human in a mask. And, like, throughout the run of Savage Dragon, he got to, like, do alternate stories, like some with time travel, some with alternate realities, some with just, like, changing the way the character did things to, like, enact all of these, like, childhood sort of, like, fantastical ideas that he had. And it was just so, like, silly and and cool that I love his art. I love looking at it. I love his ideas. So I think that was the thing. Like, when I was a kid, I would read, like, Spider-Man because I liked it, and the X-Men because I thought I was supposed to. And like, when there was a big like Secret Wars, like, or like Acts of Vengeance, like, Marvel Universe, like, through line crossover story where you're like, oh wow, I gotta read all of these because their marketing department tricked me, And I really did. I was sort of a completist. I wanted to know everything that was going on. Like, so, and obviously, like, for the Spider-Man, like, there was like 4 different titles that came out one a week. And, like, I liked some of them more than others, but sometimes they're like, well, if you want to know what's going on in this one, you got to read that one. Yeah. So I guess I like that Savage Dragon is, like, legit just one comic. It's just one comic. It comes out approximately once a month. It's easy to keep track of. Like, now I generally just get the trades after, after 6 months, get a trade. That's my preferred way of reading, to just, like,
the same way.
Binge the season of the story. And but yeah, it's just it's playful and fun loving, and the guy is like continuing to like, grow and try new things.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, now I want to read The Savage Dragon. You've convinced me for sure.
Same.
Yeah, give it a shot. There's one book called I think it's like A Talk with God or A Conversation with God, where dragon either dies or almost dies. He's in a fight and he's out of it, and then he's like talking with the god that you might expect to be looking at with like a giant beard, and God's like, ask me questions, and Savage Dragon's like, I really don't believe in you, but okay, how about these questions? And it's like, it's fun and weird. So yeah, I mean, you've already I'm still selling you on it, but yeah, I mean, if you like it, read it. And that's the thing is, I feel like this is the thing that I've learned is that there's a difference also in between like what is, let's say, quote unquote, good objectively, whatever that means, like, and what I enjoy. Like, I like it is different than I think it's good. Like, I do think like the Fast and Furious movies, I love them. And if somebody said like, what do you think the best movie ever made was? I don't think I would pick one of them. But if somebody said, what do you think's like the most fun you have at a movie? I'm like, they're definitely contenders. Like, so I have a lot of fun, and I'm now better at not continuing along a path. If somebody's like, this is good, you would like it, I think, or like if a critic, like, I do want to like read what the best things are, but if I start something and I'm like, I don't get it, or it's not for me, it's not my flavor, if for food, you could go to like a 5-star restaurant where a chef makes the greatest meal in the world that has a flavor in it that you don't like, you're like, well, I guess I'm wrong about eggplant, so I'm gonna eat this food that I hate. So what I'm trying to say is, you might not have the exact same taste that I do, and it's okay if you don't love The Savage Dragon. Probably part of it is also, I was 13 and it got, the things that we love when we're teenagers, I think empirically have a place in our heart that is not logically justifiable, other than it. As I was becoming an adult human being, my brain was doing certain things, and so it was sort of like this chemical sponge that, like, if I hear a song even that I didn't like from my teenage years, I'm like, oh, that song I hated, it brings me back,
Yeah, no, I remember reading like on Cracked a long time ago, like the music that you liked when you were teenagers, like the music you just will wind up liking when you're older. I mean, I got over that really quick because I'm like, okay, whatever. You can't change that, right? Like you just said, it's just like everyone has their taste. And that's exactly how I feel about movies and comics. Like, we talked about Mortal Kombat. Like, I don't think it was a great movie, but it was a lot of fun to watch.
Oh, it was so fun.
Yeah, like I watched the most recent one that just came out.
Yep.
And yeah, I think like whenever I spend time talking about something like critically, I want to be clear for myself. Like, I love watching a lot more than I like hate watching. And there's so much there's too many, like, there's more comics and movies and podcasts and music that I would love that I'll never get to see. And so I don't want to spend time like watching something that I think I won't enjoy. And like, I loved playing Mortal Kombat. I really enjoyed watching like some of the earlier movies. I forget how many there were, but at least I think I saw at least 2.
Yeah, there were 2. Yep.
Oh, great. Then I'm a completist. I'm a sad Mortal Kombat completist. I mean, MK is my initials, so that's why I like it. And why not? But like, definitely, I really enjoyed watching the fight scenes in this. I guess what I'm saying is, when I'm critical of something, I only want to be critical of the things that I find more value in than I don't. Like, if I just didn't like it, I don't want to talk about it. Like, I thought there was a lot of silliness in it that maybe was intended, maybe wasn't intended. Like, I don't think, I think there are movies that I go to for the dialogue. There are movies, but like, there were some cool fight scenes, and that is what I enjoyed. Like, it's sort of, I guess it's kind of like, this might be a joke now, born right in this moment, blooming here. I mean, and maybe I'm not the first person to say this, but I feel like Mortal Kombat is like porn, in that like there's there's the fight scenes or the sex scenes, and then they're like, I mean, should we just like have them one after the other? And they're like, no, come on, like finesse it a little, like have there be some kind of reason, some kind of story. Like, yeah, there's another dimension, and the pizza guy wants to fight a 4-armed creature. Okay, great. But yeah, I mean, I'm like, probably I could just I'm not going to rewatch that Mortal Kombat movie, but I might like look up a YouTube video of like some of the fight scenes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We had similar things. Like, I was so annoyed. I don't know. Don't need to get back into it. I just hated that dude's family and wish they all died in the movie.
I will also add that I think that there are movies with action in them that do like almost everything right. Like, not to make them like the highest art, but like, I mean, the Fast and Furious movies, the Crank movies, like almost all like Jason Statham movies, like he picks great vehicles, like the Transporter, which is about great vehicles. And, and there's so many, like, I mean, I love your Face-Offs, your Con Airs, like Nicolas Cage also makes some, like, they're just so silly. The movie Shoot 'Em Up. Did you guys see Shoot 'Em Up?
Oh God, yeah, with Clive Barker and Paul Giamatti. Was that it?
Clive Owens.
Oh,
yeah.
Clive Barker.
Yeah.
Paul Giamatti as Pinhead. Let's do it.
Yeah, and I mean that movie, the Shoot 'Em Up, if you haven't seen it, it's so bananas that basically Clive Owens is playing Bugs Bunny and Paul Giamatti is playing Yosemite Sam, and it's a live action, just like violent cartoon that is so it's called Shoot 'Em Up, and I guess the point is it knows exactly what it is, and it's showing you, it's like, this is what it is, and do you like that? Then you'll enjoy it. Whereas like some other movies, they're just like, yeah, people will pay money because of the name of this or the actor or whatever, but there's so many great ones too. There's so many great stupid movies.
Yeah, yes. No, I love stupid movies. I'll be the first to say that. You know, I feel like we always bring up movies on the podcast, and I'm like, I haven't seen that, but like I bet if we just like purposely tried to name the stupidest movies we can think of, I've probably seen them multiple times. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. So yes.
Oh, that's great. So you named a bunch of like your favorite writers. Do you have any? And it sounds like, are you like, other than like characters like Savage Dragon, are you into any of like the more mainstream characters, or are you not really like waning interest? Or
I great question. A thing I always say. But I mean it every time. And I would say that like the answer is yes and no. Here's why. Is like, I love Spider-Man. I'll say like, if I had to pick a favorite mainstream character, I would probably say Spider-Man. I also love Batman. Here's an analogy. Like, I would say that like Daredevil was never like one of my favorite characters, but in the hands of my favorite writers, like when Brubaker is writing him, or now it's Chip Zdarsky. I don't know how to say it.
Zdarsky,
he's writing it, and he's such a goofball, and it's like
great,
fun and different. And like Mark Waid was writing him for a while, and I'm like, oh, like I never loved like Iron Fist growing up because I never read any. I was just like, his power. It seemed, you know, I feel like it might be why I didn't like him. Is I'm like a little bit, you know, I don't have obsessive compulsive disorder, but I do like symmetry. And I'm like, he just has the one fist. That's it. Just one. I'm like, if he was Iron Fists, I think I would enjoy him more. Like, I'm like, isn't it imbalanced? Like, it's just, he just punches people strong with one, like, what's happening? Like, but when Ed Brubaker started writing him, I was like, this is like reading a movie.
Yeah.
And Brubaker wrote Daredevil also, and like Daredevil went to jail, and the Punisher was there, and the Kingpin was there, and I'm like, just like, and you were there, and you were there, you know, I'm like, and so I really feel like I understand that like the characters, you know, aren't just like no one writer, especially at Marvel or DC, like no one writer like owns any of those characters. And that's like the beautiful thing about them, that they are timeless and they can be like reinvented over and over. Like, and same thing, like I never loved Thor. I'm like, who cares about Thor until like Jason Aaron like started writing these beautiful stories that like it's like a complete, from like the end of it, I'm like, gave me chills. It's like so beautiful. And Silver Surfer I never liked until Dan Slott. So it's like weird to say. So the analogy that I have now is like, growing up, whenever a Will Ferrell movie came out, I always thought I wouldn't enjoy it, but then I'd go see it, and everyone, I'm like, okay, that one got me. Like, I always thought, and so why don't I say I like Will Ferrell movies? Because I just have this part of my identity. I conceive of myself as not, but he's so funny. I think it maybe goes back to like, when I started out in comedy, I'm like, the kind of comedy I was doing when I started was like, math equations, like one-line jokes that are like, I loved like Emo Phillips and Mitch Hedberg and Dimitri Martin and Wendy Liebman and Rita Rudner, and just like these perfect and joke nuggets, and that's what I was doing, and I just didn't respond as much to, like, other people could make me laugh, but I was like, this is like my brain jam, And now if people ask me to name my favorite comedians, I'll say Mitch Hedberg was like my first favorite, but I'll also name like Maria Bamford and Doug Stanhope and Chappelle, and Reggie Watts, is he like, just, there's so many types of people doing different things to love. And so I feel like similarly, the way that I felt about Will Ferrell, I also felt about Daredevil. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't like Daredevil, but this comic's good. Oh, I don't like, and then they become also like the songs of my teenage years, where I'm like, oh, Daredevil, I remember I had your Secret Wars action figure. Of course I love Daredevil. Like Captain America, you were kind of a square. I never really liked you until I read you in the Ultimates when Mark, is it Miller or Millar? I always say it looks like Millar. I think it's Miller. But like, I love that guy's stuff. And Brubaker's run on Captain America, like that guy, just give that guy everybody and I'll love everybody. But I would say growing up, before I knew anything about who was writing them, I loved Spider-Man, I loved the Hulk. I read all of Peter David's, or most of Peter David's run on the Hulk, and just like, oh, that really got in me. And I did, it's weird. I'm weird with Daredevil. Like I go back and forth, but I did and do love Batman. Had to very early on the Batman Hulk crossover, the Marvel DC.
Wow.
That was a pretty fun story. But yeah, the reason that I say yes, I have those favorites, and I say no that I don't, because like I won't just read any Spider-Man comic because I like Spider-Man. Like if a person, I'll give it a shot. If somebody was like, will you read this one? Yeah, why not? Because you're my friend. Absolutely. But I currently don't read every Spider-Man comic. I do. I like some of the Nick Spencer ones that are going on now. But I don't rush out and buy it right when a new one is around. I'll be like, I'll wait for that one to come to the library. Whereas like, there's one that I just ordered, another non-mainstream, but there's a guy named Will McPhail, McPhail. He is a New Yorker cartoonist, and follow him on Instagram. His cartoons are they're beautiful and so funny. And he just put out his first graphic novel, which is called In. That is one that I ordered from an independent bookstore because I want to support him and the bookstore.
Yes.
And like, whereas some I might get on Amazon, some I might get at my store, but I'm just like, this one, like it came out, I think this month, and I ordered it this month, as opposed to like waiting until it goes on sale, so some characters, some writers, some stories, like there's more urgency for. And I definitely do lean more towards caring about who's writing something than like I never really read many Superman comics until like Brian Bendis is writing them now.
Yeah.
And or if it was a Garth Ennis Hitman crossover, or there's that sound again. What is happening? Is it my connection?
Very strange.
Okay. That's my bit. And wait, is that the sound of somebody drinking a glass of alcohol? Also, okay, fair enough. But yeah, those are my. I mean, and I guess I particularly love to answer a question you're not asking. Like, when somebody I love makes a great thing with a character I love, like, it's really cool. Like Into the Spider-Verse is a beautiful accomplishment of like comics film integration, like that I know Bendis was like greatly like involved in helping become the thing. Like, he's really good. Wolverine's another character I've liked a lot, which I feel like, do you guys know They Might Be Giants,
Yeah.
the band?
Of
I
course.
feel like saying that Wolverine's my favorite character is being like, Istanbul, Not Constantinople is my favorite They Might Be Giants song. I'm like, yeah, it's like, oh, Birdhouse in Your Soul. Of course I love They Might Be Giants. Oh yeah, Particle Man, nailed it. Everything on Flood, the one album.
I say Dr. Worm. That's my favorite They Might Be Giants.
Dr. Worm's a good one. There's I enjoy Until My Head Falls Off. I don't know if that's the full name of it, but it's a beautiful one. They got beautiful songs, but the point is, I really like Old Man Logan.
Yeah.
That I think Mark Miller started, but then when there was some
Secret Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, when the Secret Wars happened and there was Battle World and then there's all these disparate, worlds. Bendis wrote the Old Man Logan one, and it just also ended like a beautiful movie of everything coming together as the character experiences like this culmination in the same way that we do, like the art and the story like come together. Like, when the art and the story and the character that you love come together, like created by these, I mean, they're really doing magic. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I know what series you're talking about. That artist Sorrentino is so good.
Oh yeah, I mean, I could definitely name you art that I love. Like Mike Deodato is his. I think I remember him on like Avengers and Hulk at various points, and I mean McFarlane's art, of course, and like all those Image guys. Like it's so interesting though that there's some. Here's I'll reveal. Like today, I would definitely enjoy reading things by like Mike. Is it Mignola?
Yeah.
When I first saw there was a Hellboy crossover with Savage Dragon that Hellboy that the Hellboy guy drew some of, and I was like, this doesn't look like the weirdo art this is different weirdo art than I'm accustomed to. Like, I didn't understand what he was doing, and so it wasn't like for my palate at that time. And I think like Mike Allred is another guy that was sort of like that for me. But then when I read like X-Force and then it became Ecstatics, like that was another, like, I really like when weirdos do weird stuff with the mainstream characters, like your, Grant Morrison X-Men or Zdarsky's Daredevil right now. It's like, wow, like it's cool that, they're allowed to like play and like stretch the characters farther than you thought they might be allowed to.
Yeah, that's how I kind of felt about Dan Slott's Silver Surfer, because it felt like Doctor Who, like he had like a companion.
Yes. Oh man, what a great analogy.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah,
I'm learning from the master.
I am to analogies like you are to analogies now. Yeah. Oh man, that Slott Silver Surfer is just, maybe it's also because maybe the reason I didn't think I liked the Silver Surfer was because he didn't seem human.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if I was thinking of that like objectively, but the idea that, like, I mean, in this one, he has a human companion, and also like his humanity is like, sort of front and center in that whole story. He's not just this, high and mighty, just like foreign
space god kind of.
Yeah, exactly. It's yeah. So did I answer your question? Spider-Man, my favorite.
Yeah.
If you could have any superpowers, what would they be?
Oh, that's a nice question. I switched it up. The ones that I think about the most, I mean, other than I won't. I'm like, I'd like to have the power to grant unlimited wishes. Okay, now we're set. So some ones that I like the idea of like time, slow down, speed up, that sort of thing. My girlfriend read a book called, I believe it's just called Singularity. And in the book, this kid discovers a shed that when you're in it, time goes at a completely different rate than outside of it, so that he could be in there for a year and maybe only a day passes outside it.
Oh, they copied that from Dragon Ball Z then.
Oh, that could be. Or maybe the other way around. It's I don't know how, this book is from a while ago. But that appeals to me, the idea that, like, you know,
Yeah,
it
that's
appealed
really
to her,
cool.
and like I feel like we have this in common, that like I've always thought like, oh man, if you could stop time, then you could like walk anywhere in quote no time, and you'd be like functionally teleporting. You could like use it, if you slow it down, you could like essentially move at what would seem like super speed. And so it could like, time manipulation could turn into what seems like so many others, but if you knew what was going on underneath it, you're like, oh, there's actually a lot of time, work, effort, resources going into this. Also, I guess, like, you know, invisibility seems like a fun thing. But yeah, I guess those are the ones that I think about first.
You just want to be God. You just want to have all the powers.
Yeah, I would like, all of the powers. I would like, I mean, how about this? Like, I've been learning about Buddhism recently, and the goals of most Buddhists, I think, as I understand it, are to increase happiness and the root of happiness, and decrease suffering and the root of suffering for all sentient beings. Like, to travel towards enlightenment, divinely enlightened Buddha omniscience, so that you can also help everybody else travel along that path towards that. And so I guess if that's a superpower, I'd like that as well. Just the elimination of suffering for all. Is that a superpower?
It is now.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I like that.
There's a thing about, Marianne Williamson, who ran for president, but
Yes.
before that, my girlfriend and I would sometimes go see her speak, and she was, I think it was from her that I first heard this concept that maybe exists elsewhere in spirituality, but the idea is that if you're going to like pray for something or wish for something, why not do it, wish and pray for what you want, or better, like in the way that, because like, if you're a child, like, imagine you're a child and you're like, I want all the candy. An evil genie grants your wish, and you're like, oh God, my stomach hurts. I wish I had wished for something better. Be like, how about the optimal amount of candy, plus also some healthy food that tastes good, plus also, enough money to support me and my family, plus also world peace, plus also, all the things that you're not thinking of in the limited capacity that you are. It's sort of like the way that when you sign a contract in show business, they're like, we own the recording of this, and also the audio, and also like the laser disc, and also any technology that does exist or might exist anywhere in perpetuity throughout the universe. And that's the way that that wishes could go as well. Be like, so yeah, what kind of superpower do you want? I guess I want, time manipulation, invisibility, and or whatever the most appropriate powers would be to help all of humanity and sentient beingness along the path towards oneness, enlightenment, nirvana, liberation, etc.
What if you wake up tomorrow as Marianne Williamson?
Ha!
For that wish.
Yeah, for
Man,
that
that would be a
wish.
real freaky everyday.
Like, just from like hearing your material and past albums and stuff, you're a vegan, you're studying like Buddhism. What took you down this road to, like, I don't know, do you think it's like because you were a dork that you were, like, no offense, but self-proclaimed?
Whoa.
No offense, you're a
on.
dork.
No offense.
Interview over. I am Gallagher walking out of here. I think that, number one, great question. We're back. And I do think that my veganism began in a place that I think a lot of people are, which is like when I was in high school. I grew up, in the United States, eating mostly the food that I would have at the time called like American food, your hot dogs,
Burgers.
mostly hot dogs. Just ate hot dogs. And my mom would say that I ate the 3 P food groups: pizza, pasta, and potato chips. What was? Oh, peanut butter. Peanut butter was the last one. And then I would say and frankfurters, but with a P. PH rankfurters. But I do remember thinking at the time, while I was, eating animals, I was like, I think it would be better if I didn't. I would like rather not, but I didn't have like the know-how. I didn't have the tools. I didn't cook my own food. I didn't really do I didn't do the shopping really. So I was like, but then I got to college and I was like, oh, I guess I can try. There was like in the dining hall, there was like a vegetarian food like station. And so I tried it and it worked. And I was like, well, I guess I'll just keep trying it. And like, that's why, like, if other people are like, I could never do it. And I'm like, I think that you could, because like I couldn't do it and I did. Like I'm not special in that I could eat different things. Like we could all eat different things. And so I think that we all do, like whether Buddhist identified, whether Buddhist leaning, whether vegan identified or not, like I think that most reasonable people, and I'm including you in this, I don't mean to put words in your mouth or reasons in your head, but I think that most reasonable people would be like, given the choice between doing more harm or less harm, or creating more joy or less joy, would create more joy and cause less harm. And that's really the place that all of that was coming from for me, when I was like, oh yeah, I want to contribute less harm to the world if I can. That's why I became vegan. And I think a similar thing is what's attracting me to Buddhism. Another thing that's attracting me to Buddhism is like kind of the logic of it, that there's essentially like, there's nothing really dogmatic about it. Like everything that the Buddha said is basically like, don't take my word for it, check it yourself, like try this out, like, and see if it has the effect that people are purporting that it does. And if it does, then great, do it. Like do what makes sense. And here are some offerings. Like, they have 10 things that are essentially like the 10 commandments, but they don't call them commandments. They're essentially like the 10 suggestions. They're like, look, if you want to, we think it's pretty cool to not kill, and to not only not kill, but also to help live. There's like 2 good ones. So killing is bad, not killing is good, and helping live is good. Like if you don't kill a person, that's great. But if you feed a person, that's also great. And that's even like, bonus. Anyway, I think that there's various things that sort of set me off along this path. It was actually, I feel like probably being a dork in the way that I was held me back from finding these things all sooner, in this way that like I was like taught by my parents to like not do drugs, let's say. And I still haven't really ever smoked a tobacco cigarette, and I don't want to. I don't drink really alcohol anymore, though I'm not opposed to it. It just doesn't do the most for me. Mm. But I'm like, psychedelics, those do the most for me, or I do the most of them. And, and I would say, like, I didn't smoke pot until I was like in my 20s, and I was dating a woman who was like, pot helps me. It gets me into this place where I'm creative. It gets me, like, she was a musician, she was a comedian, and I tried it, and it's still, pot is almost never like it's not the thing that helps me be creative, for sure. It zones me out. It can feel good in my body if it's the kind of pot that I like. But I was expecting pot to be different, and that was why I didn't like it. It's like if somebody comes to a comedy show and they're like, this wasn't Kevin Hart at all. Oh yeah, most comedy shows aren't Kevin Hart. So if you expect them all to be Kevin Hart, you're going to be disappointed. And I thought that pot, I was like, oh, I thought this pot was going to be like Kevin Hart, but it wasn't. It was like Kevin Mind. So I tried pot, didn't love it. But then when I tried mushrooms for the first time, after having done like a little research into the kind of effects that they can have, I was like, oh yeah, like this this makes sense. Like this, like, pot sort of like zones me out, where mushrooms kind of like zoned me in. I was like, oh yeah. And like made me sort of feel for the first time, like the connectedness of like, that maybe Buddhism sometimes talks about, that, that lots of spirituality talk about, that like, that lots of just human beings talk about when they get value in community, like to learn that we're not just, like Alan Watts says, we don't come into the world, we come out of it, that we are all, from the Big Bang. Even if you're like a science head, you're like, yeah, we were potentially all in one literal point, before whatever that means. And we're all made of the same, star stuff, molecules, like cell, like everything. We're 99% the same as like chimps and stuff, or approximately. We're like 50% the same as bananas, humans are, like genetically, I believe. And so it's like, oh yeah, we're just like, we're all universe stuff. And
sorry, by the way, Myq is the only one that hasn't smoked weed.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, when people a lot of the time will ask me, like when I like say a weird thing or have like a weird joke, they're like, "Did you write that while you were high?" I'm like, "Here's what I wrote while I was high." And sincerely, I mean, it was. I feel like while I'm on mushrooms, I might say things like this as well.
No,
but
absolutely, yeah.
Then, like, the various lessons and insights that can be gleaned under such circumstances, like those. I think Doug Stanhope had a great joke once that was sort of the point was like, there's good drugs and bad drugs. Like, I forget, it was like cocaine or alcohol. He's like, bad drug because it makes you think things that aren't true, like I should fight this cop. And good drugs are things that make you think things that are true. Like mushrooms are like, I think the example he gave was like, if you do LSD and then look into your dog's eyes, then you'll always have that, You'll
Yeah.
never not, like, even sober, you'll look in your dog's eyes and you're like, yeah, that thing was real. Paraphrasing. But I feel like not, and I'm glad that I didn't. I'm glad that I did everything at the rate that I did, because I also know that, like, you smoke pot in high school, like your brain has effects happen to it then that who knows what happens to your, IQ itself is like a sort of a bigoted, racist artifact. But given that we have it, they're like, oh yeah, like the earlier you do things to your brain, the more different things happen, the more effects you might have on your brain. So happy I started like morphing my brain in my 20s. When it was almost done, I was like, oh, let's just keep this morphin going. Morphin for more fun. It's my remake, the Mighty More Fun Power Rangers. And that's what mushrooms is. It's kind of like a power arranger, a Mighty More Fun Power Arranger. And
more fungus?
Oh yeah, Mighty More Fungus. There we are. Absolutely. Get that high in here. And yeah, so I think that all of these things were sort of, happening kind of in tandem, where like I started meditating, 5, 6, 7 years ago. I started doing ayahuasca ceremonies 6, 7 years ago.
Oh man, nice.
Started doing mushrooms in my 20s. I like met my my wonderful girlfriend, who I've been with just over 5 years now, and she introduced me to like some authors like Pema Chodron, who's a Buddhist nun who I've read almost everything that she's written, and just like it also is like beautiful and ceremonial and like both spiritual and practical, mostly practical, like reading things like Thich Nhat Hanh or Ram Dass. And like, so I can't point to any one thing to be like, what led me to this? Because it's all just like this, stacks on stacks of causes and conditions, as they say in Buddhism. Like, be like, why did this happen? Well, because of this, because of this, because of this. And it's eventually like, turtles all the way back to the Big Bang and probably before. And so I think, I do think that like when I started doing comedy, I was probably talking about like some of the same things. I was talking about my life, I was talking about the food I ate. So I had jokes about being vegan. I talked about my relationships. I talked about movies I liked or didn't like. But like moving forward, as I grew as a comedian and hopefully as a person, I I learned that I could decide what I wanted to talk about more, what I wanted to focus on, while understanding that I'm completely not in control of the thoughts that come to me, or like the way the world outside of my experience and possibly some of what's inside of my experience like exists. Like I'm not in control of, if I'm in control of anything, it's what's going on in here, but maybe not even that, but certainly not what's going on out there. And so whatever input comes in, I can hopefully decide what things, like, you know, of the jokes that I write, I'm like, I'll tell that one tonight. I'll make the hour about this topic. I'll now, like, as compared to before when I was just like, I'll just tell the jokes that the audience laughed at the most, regardless. Like, those are my favorites are what your favorites are, because I like when you like me, and I still like when you like me. But I also now am like, I like when I like me. And so there's some jokes that I'm like, there's a joke, I'll tell you about it after you see my hour. There's a joke in the show that I'm like, will I, when I record the album, when I record the hour, will I keep that joke in? Because it always gets a laugh, and also it isn't my favorite. And maybe I'll say that about it, because it's like it's a real weird experience to have, where I'm like, if I were just writing it as a book, I'd be like, I'm not going to include that part's not, it's not important, you know? Like, there's things that are important to say, and there's things that are funny to say, and I want to do like the closest overlap, like a Venn diagram circle of funny and important. But also I'm fine to every once in a while say an important thing that's not funny. Every once in a while say a funny thing that's not important. So like, I'm aiming not to be too rigid about it. But in the beginning, I was more rigidly following the laughs. And so I think that letting go and opening up to, like, whether it's, you know, loosening up and like letting my mind be altered and by substances, by other ideas, authors, books, meditation practices, like all of these things, I think are what are contributing to whatever you asked about. Me, my life, the things I talk about.
Do you feel like taking psychedelics though helped you, like you were saying before, like your jokes bloom, you know, and then you prune them? Like, did psychedelics help you figure out how to make them bloom, or at least go towards that path?
Good question. I'll answer it like this. I'll say the short answer is probably no, but also it could be yes. The real answer is I don't know, and yet I'm still gonna say more. Full disclaimer, I don't know, but also here's some information.
My kind of answer.
When I do mushrooms, and one of the reasons that I like mushrooms more for creativity than pot is that, like, one time I did a pot edible on a plane, and I was like, I wonder if this is a good idea. I'm going to keep a log through the whole flight of like the things that I think and feel. And it was like pretty stressful to do that. So I might take an edible on a plane in the future, but the thing I'm definitely not going to do is keep a log of it. Because the thing that was interesting to me at the time was I didn't know what ideas that I was having were good or important, were funny or important. Whereas with mushrooms, I almost always have an idea that the thing that I'm recording is good and or important, because if it wasn't, I wouldn't take time out of being in the present moment to record it and extract it for later, like enjoyment or remembering or learning or whatever it was. Because that's one of the conflicts I always have on mushrooms is like, should I keep enjoying the present, or do I want to try to capture something so that I can have it to share with myself and others in the future? All that said, I might come up with like 64 ideas during a day on mushrooms. Nice. And then later I'll look back at them and be like, 32 of these are good ideas, even though I was confident in all of them. And so I think that the sober mindset is an important component in my creative process to, like, I do think that mushrooms does allow me to bloom, as you asked, in a similar way to a good audience does, like a really nice audience that is open to and encouraging of and inspiring of riffing. Like, if I can just if I go on stage and I have a few ideas of what I want to talk about, but then I don't have to get to any of them, like that's one of my favorite experiences where, just getting to sort of like, ride on the wave of what's happening and what's being open to being like, oh yeah, I've done comedy for almost 20 years. And like, sometimes I'll be reminded of a joke that I want to tell, or a story that I think is funny and could be a joke, or a brand new thing made of ingredients that were present in the room right then and never before, and maybe never again. And so I do think that there is, again, an overlap or a parallelness to like the psychedelic open mindset and the onstage sober open mindset.
Yeah, now that you pointed that out, like, I saw your special, I saw some of your set on YouTube too, and before this talk, I wouldn't describe you as like a psychedelic comedian, but now that you're pointing it out, like, I've tripped too, and like, it's just that stream of consciousness. Like, I feel like you're kind of like so tuned into that in a really cool way. I don't know if that's what you were just trying to say, but like, that's the impression I get from you.
Sincerely, I am very grateful for the kind thing that you said, and so just take this with a grain of salt. That was not what I meant at all. But I said that as a joke, only because now that you've said what you said, it does make complete sense. In fact, like the latest hour that I just did, the hour that is AKA my newest album, that one, I would say, like, I talk about psychedelics in it, and like the structure of it is such that things are kind of all connected in a way that the thing that you're describing does, I would say, would apply to this hour in particular, and maybe also the other ones as well, though it is explicitly like, sort of referenced in this one more than it might be in other ones. Like, yeah, I guess I never did. I think I've only put out albums after doing psychedelics. So do psychedelics, kids. And, do psychedelics, kids, when you're adults. And yeah, I do think that there is like the parallel, like the main, the thing that connects the two, like the doing of comedy that I love doing, and the psychedelic headspace that I love being in. Like, I mean, I'd say presence is like the thing that connects them both. So it's like those are both, like, presence is like the root, and the others, like, those are all like the symptoms. Those are all like the effects of that maybe cause of presence.
Nice.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I think, dude, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited to see your, especially after like talking to you and hanging out for a little bit. So excited to, see you live in a couple weeks. Hang out with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and do you, other than your tour dates coming up, which I'm sure we can find on your website, what else would you like to plug?
Thanks. So yeah, I am a stand-up comedian, and my tour dates are at my website, which is MyqKaplan.com. And Myq is spelled MYQ, Kaplan is KAPLAN. That's all my social media as well, Myq Kaplan on all those places. I have a newsletter that comes out once a week for free on Substack, so MyqKaplan.substack.com. There's always at least a few jokes and or other fun units, as well as like some upcoming like dates and podcast info and stuff. I do have 2 podcasts. One is called Broccoli and Ice Cream, and I interview folks about the works and joys of their life. And the other one's called The Faucet, which is just me spouting off, so to speak. A faucet's like a spout. Does that make sense? And is my joke very clear? Okay, great. I'll pound it into the ground. Perfect. And then my albums, I guess, are the other main thing that I would recommend. If nothing else, listen to AKA and any other albums, podcasts, etc., where you're on the internet right now. I believe that I have faith that you can find. Put my name anywhere and you'll find it.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on. This was great.
Honestly, a treat.
Oh, the same.
Yeah, it's been so fun. Yeah, I love that. Like, there's definitely like a little crossover between comic books and comedy, but like, God, it was so fun. Like it was good nerding out with you.
Oh, sure. I'll also on that tip, I realize I'm saying a lot. Here's a tip for me. Stop saying tip so much. I'm in tip top. Okay, here we go. There's a couple of comics that have like comedians in them. Like I just read there was a new one by, I think it's Joe Hill.
Oh, I read some of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Dying
pretty cool.
is easy.
Yeah, there's in one Preacher comic, Bill Hicks, like the Preacher sees Bill Hicks perform on a page or two.
Nice.
That's pretty cool. But the one I was trying to think of right now is Adrian. I don't know if it's Tomine, Tomine, and the book. It's also, I think it's called Killing and Dying, and like the final short story in it is about, I think, a kid who wants to do comedy and so goes to a comedy club, and there's like a couple of jokes by other comedians and like they're credited, and it's a cool thing. Like if you like comedy and comic books, that's a cool one to check out.
Very cool.
Dude, thank you for those Ricks. And yeah, if you just don't mind sharing the episode whenever we get it up.
I will tell no one.
Keep it a secret.
You do the work. You tell my mom. Yeah, absolutely. I'm very glad to have the opportunity to do this for its own sake. This is the best. It's like we had fun in the moment and also get fun for other people for later. So the best kind of mushrooms. Us rooms. It's a pleasure to meet both of you, and look forward to seeing you in the place at the time with the wrench.
Yeah. Awesome.
Hi, you're listening to Comics and Chronic, and I'm Jake FH.
I'm Cody Cannon.
And I'm Anthony Iannaccio.
And you can tune in every Thursday to hear new episodes of Comics and Chronic.
And make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Comics and Chronic. That's Comics, the letter N, Chronic.
We'll see you guys next week.
Woo!
Peace.